In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the window regulator on the sliding door of this Toyota Sienna. Let's install this TRQ regulator. As a little side note, I have removed the seat from the rails so that I can get much better access to the door panel. You can easily do that by pulling on the release lever on the back of the seat. But once you get it out of there, we have full access to the door panel, which is what we need. If your seat is still in place, you're gonna have to struggle for room a little bit. So taking it out is optional, but well worth it. I'm gonna start with the window switch, pry up on this plastic panel, flip it over, and there's an electrical connector. Unplug that, set the switch assembly aside. Next, I'm gonna lock the door because the lock indicator actually will cover the door panel. The handle and lock mechanism are behind it. And the door panel needs to slide straight off, so you wanna make sure it's centered up here. On this side of the door panel, right here next to the door handle, you'll see a T25 Torx bolt. Remove it. This is what clamps the door panel onto the door handle here so it doesn't move around. Now you're going to want to pull on the door panel starting from the bottom just because that's easier. Pull it and pop all of the clips that are holding this onto the door. Work your way around. You're going to have to struggle for space a little bit. Okay, there's the door panel. Next, this door handle assembly has to come off because, well, there's pretty much cables running everywhere on this thing. And to do that, I'm going to unplug the two electrical connectors at the bottom first. This one for the door lock actuator, and then this one right here. I'm going to take off the 10mm bolts that hold this assembly on, and we'll peel it off and inspect it from there. There we go. So that's out of our way. I'm just going to leave it hanging over here for now. We do have to peel the vapor barrier back, so I'm going to continue by doing that, although it looks like some of these clips here that hold the cables are going to be in our way. But usually you can stretch the plastic around it. Peel the butyl tape off, or the vapor barrier off of the butyl tape. Be careful not to get it on your clothes. It is extremely sticky and unlikely to come back off if it gets on it. Now, you're gonna have to work around these wires here. We need to have access to most of these openings here so we can get the window regulator off. Continue peeling the vapor barrier. You don't have to take it off completely. Like I said, we just have to make enough room to get to the regulator bolts here, 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 and obviously the electrical connector here, and then enough space to slide it out through one of these openings. Now with the ignition switch on and the window switch reconnected, I'm going to lower the window. If you're replacing yours because your window regulator or motor is bad and stuck and you just want to replace it, well, you're going to have to reach in here and disconnect the two 10mm bolts that hold the glass up. I can still roll mine down, so I will. For this, you actually have to go all the way down with it. That gives you access to the bolts, one through this opening and another one right here. We'll have to peel off the vapor barrier a little bit more. I'm going to disconnect the window switch so that I don't accidentally move the window, and of course turn the key off so that I don't drain my battery. Looking towards the back of the door right here between these two door motor cables, you'll see that 10mm bolt. You're going to have to unbolt that. Just remove it. Try not to lose it. We will be reusing this one. A little bit harder to see, but you'll find the same bolt right through this opening towards the middle of the door. Also a 10mm. This holds the front of the window. Try not to drop it in the door, but if you do, that's all right. You can fish it out with a magnet. At this point, I'm going to bring the window glass up and tape it. The glass will have to be supported because obviously once the regulator comes out, there is nothing holding this in anymore. So I'm going to reconnect my window switch, turn the ignition on, and bring the glass up. It's not bolted on, so be careful. It is just basically resting on the regulator. Okay, I brought it up all the way. I recommend using painter's tape to tape up this window because it doesn't leave sticky residue behind. I also recommend cleaning the glass, of course, so that the tape can actually stick. And I'm going to run several pieces of tape about halfway down along the window. I'm using inch-wide tape. If you're using tape that's any thicker, that's even better. If you're using narrower tape, you're going to have to use more of it so that it can actually support the weight of the glass. Window switch is connected once again, ignition is on, so let's carefully lower the window regulator. Do not stick your hand in here or anything. Obviously this is a really bad pinch point. Perfect. Just going to make it nice and even, about halfway down. The glass is staying. Obviously keep an eye on it. If you have a second person helping you out, that's even better because they can keep an eye on that glass while you work. You do not want it to fall down because obviously it can hurt you, but also it can break. As soon as it goes down, it'll shatter. Now we can continue with the regulator. The regulator is bolted onto the door at multiple different points. It's got 2 bolts over here and 4 over here. Let's start by unplugging this connector for the window motor. And then I'm going to take out these 3 10mm bolts, and this one I'm just going to loosen. It has a slot here so that you can lift the regulator up and out, and it's going to stay hooked in here while you work. It doesn't fall into the door. And lastly is these 2 10mm bolts here that hold the arm for this regulator. Now this regulator and motor assembly can slide up and out. Careful of your interior panels as you slide this out so you don't scratch them. It does have quite sharp edges. There it is. Now we have to take the motor off of the regulator so we can actually put it on the new regulator. With a T25 Torx bit, you can remove the 3 screws that hold the motor onto the regulator. Once it separates, pull it off. This is not a spring-loaded regulator, so nothing to worry about here. This is your motor. We will be reusing these little bolts, so I'm going to take them out. I have my new regulator set up next to the old one in the exact same way. That way everything mounts back on exactly like I took it off. So take the new regulator, line up the motor. Once the teeth on those on the gear line up, you'll be able to put in the 3 screws. And with these in, snug them up. They don't have to be extremely tight if you're doing this by hand, about 1/8 of a turn after they bottom out. They are small and delicate. Take that top mounting bolt that we didn't remove from the original regulator and thread it into the new one just a few turns. That way you can hook this on as soon as it's in the door. And speaking of it being in the door, let's slide it in. Put it in the same way it came out. Once you get it in here, line up the grommet first and then hook this bolt in. The grommet over here, as well as the bolt, will kind of hold it in place and prevent it from pivoting around. Line up the smaller track on this new regulator and start in one of the bolts. You can see exactly where the bolts were from the old one, so I'm going to get it close. I won't tighten them until they're both in though. With both of them in, snug them up. Now make sure all of this is still lined up properly and start in these bolts over here. With all of them in, snug these up as well. With these all snugged up, if you have the means to torque them and you would like to, 71 inch-pounds is the torque for all 6 of these 10mm headed bolts that hold the regulator onto the door. All right, those are all torqued. At this point, several things need to happen. I'm going to plug in my switch. My ignition is in the on position. I'm going to bring the regulator up a little bit. This not only verifies that it functions, but I can see it here, mostly on this side, but that's okay because I want to bring the glass down slowly until it touches the regulator, and then I will bring the whole thing down so I can properly secure it with the mounting hardware. But at least here, the glass doesn't have to travel all the way down with me holding it. I'm going to carefully remove the tape that I have here. With my tape removed, very slowly, let the glass come down until it matches up with the regulator. Okay, looks like that's right about here. Now I'm going to bring it down very slowly. I'm putting downward pressure on the glass, that way it slides down. There we go. Very gently and carefully thread in these bolts that hold the regulator onto the glass. These also get torqued to 71 inch-pounds. I have my switch connected and the ignition on. Let's give this a test before we put everything back together. It should go all the way up and all the way down. Perfect. If you have the auto function available, test that as well. This still works perfectly. Now I'm going to take the door handle and hook it on into its spot here, just so I can position the vapor barrier back where it was. Make sure all your wires go through. Obviously this is going to have to come back off, but I wanted to get it out of my way so I can put this up. Let's get this side done first. Stick it back onto the butyl tape. The butyl tape should still be sticky. This Toyota butyl tape is sticky for a very long time, but if you need to replace it or stick this in different ways, do whatever you have to do so that this can stay properly secured. Make sure any cables that need to get resecured actually get resecured. Same with these up here. They should just kind of fall into place. I'll take this back off, get the vapor barrier stuck back on, hook this into position. This door handle assembly had 3 10mm bolts that it was secured with. I'm going to start them all, but I won't tighten them until they're all in, so this can move around and get those bolts lined up. Okay, they're all in. Snug it up. 71 inch-pounds on these as well. Plug these two connectors back in. This one was for the window switch. Let's bring in the door panel and line it up. The main part you want to line up is the door handle. Once you do that, the rest of it should kind of fall into place. Once you're sure that it is in position, you have to just basically press it on, snap in all of the clips that lock it in. Plug in your window switch and stick it back down, and put in this T25 screw that holds the door panel onto the handle. Make sure you don't over tighten this one because it's threading into plastic and obviously it's going to strip out and not hold. Now that everything's back together, there you have it. Job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.